Good evening. It's just wonderful to be with you all here tonight and to get to talk about miracles in God's time and in God's way. I didn't used to believe in miracles until the first time I heard the Mahanta's voice. It happened in 1979, before I had ever even heard of Eckankar. And I had just graduated from college with a music degree, and I was playing the violin in a small opera orchestra in California. We were all young musicians, fresh out of college, inexperienced, except for the concertmaster, who was a very well-known professional in the area. Now, I was the assistant concertmaster. That meant that I sat next to him and I got to learn from him, and it was just wonderful. But in my inexperience, I didn't realize that my position also carried responsibilities. We were playing the opera La Bohème, and any of you opera buffs out there will know that it's full of solos for the concertmaster, and it never occurred to me that I should learn the solos too. And as assistant concertmaster, I was supposed to be his backup, his substitute, if anything happened for him. Well, one morning, about halfway through the run of performances, I woke up and heard a voice. It was a loud voice, a man's voice, very commanding, and it said, "Learn the solos." Well, I got out my violin and started practicing, and I practiced off and on all day long until I could play the solos with ease. And that night at the opera, the concertmaster's chair was vacant. His car had broken down and he never got to the performance. But thanks to that inner voice, that loud, commanding voice, I was ready. And what's more, I wasn't nervous. I used to just have terrible stage fright. But that night, I felt like I was being held in the palm of a giant hand, and everything went perfectly. Well, I didn't know whose voice that was. And what's more, I had no idea how to interpret that experience because my parents didn't believe in God. My family didn't believe in God or spirit or miracles, or certainly not inner guidance, voices that came to you in times of need. But that voice was the call of soul for me. That started me on my quest, which eventually led me to the teachings of Eckankar. And now I think I know whose voice it was. Yes, I think that was the voice of the inner master that we know as the Mahanta in Eckankar. And I'd like to read a short quote from one of his books. In the Living Word, Book 3, Sri Harold Klemp, the Mahanta, the spiritual leader of Eckankar, describes the countless miracles in our lives. He says they come as nudges, images, warm feelings, thoughts, and quiet voices. They are the presence of the Mahanta. And for me, this is one of the greatest miracles, that no matter how the voice comes, the Mahanta is with us every moment. One day, I pulled into a gas station, and a woman ran up to my windshield. Now, this isn't what normally happens to me in a gas station. And she was strangely dressed, and her eyes were really about this big, and she was standing staring at me in the windshield. Well, my first reaction was fear. I wanted to just drive away and get out of there. And then a little voice said to me, Amanda, fear is not who you are. You are soul. You are a spark of the Ek. You are a spark of divine love. So act like it. So I did a little spiritual exercise there in the front seat of the car. I sang the hue for a few moments until I felt the fear drain away, and then I got out of the car. Well, the woman ran up to me and she started gesturing wildly at her van and saying, "Is too far? Is too far?" And I realized that she was a recent arrival to the United States. In fact, it turned out that she had just arrived from Kenya. And she didn't know how to park her enormous van so that the gas tank and the gas pump were close to each other. Yeah, that problem. Well, I tried to explain to her how to turn the car around or how to go around to the other side, and she just kept getting more and more upset. So I offered to move her car for her. Well, her kids were in the car, and she was a tiny person. She had stacked pillows up in the driver's seat just so she could see over the steering wheel. And I'm not a tiny person, so I'm throwing the pillows to her kids, and everyone's laughing, and I finally get the car parking situation sorted out. And as we were standing there at the pump, I felt her arms go around my waist, and my arms went around her. And we stood there watching the numbers tick over on the gas pump, weeping because of the love that was flowing through both of us. That was a miracle, to go from fear to that kind of divine love stream. That was a miracle. And I know you felt it too. I like those little sweet miracles the best. Sometimes miracles are hard, and one of those happened a couple of years ago. I woke up one morning and felt just a little ping in one of my knees. Well, it turned out to be a ligament tearing from arthritis. I didn't know I had arthritis because I didn't have pain. But it turned out that both knees were quite involved, and within a few months, I couldn't walk more than a block, and I couldn't climb the stairs in our home. Physical therapy didn't help, and I didn't want knee replacements at that point in my life. So I opted for regenerative medicine, stem cell therapy. Regenerative medicine. Doesn't that sound like a spiritual opportunity? Regeneration? Yes. So I decided to live the whole experience as a spiritual exercise. And of course, the first step is to ask the Master for guidance. The first nudge I got was to see if I could have both knees done at the same time. The procedure is not pleasant. It's expensive, and it takes months to regenerate the joint. So I thought it would be great if I could just get it over with. But the doctor was very skeptical. He said that it takes 400,000 stem cells to regenerate one joint, and that few people have the 800,000 cells for two joints. But the Mahanta was saying, go for it. So again, I asked, well, how do I do this? How do I generate all those stem cells? And this time I heard one word, chrysalis. Well, I remembered from when I was this tall that a chrysalis is the stage between the caterpillar and the butterfly. But I wasn't sure how that was going to help me, so I researched chrysalis, and I learned that after the caterpillar creates that sort of shell around itself, which is the chrysalis, it exudes an enzyme which dissolves its own body. The caterpillar turns into a liquid, all except for a few tiny clusters of cells suspended in that liquid that scientists call imaginal discs. There's an imaginal disc for the wings, an imaginal disc for the antenna, an imaginal disc for the legs. And those imaginal discs use the caterpillar's soup to build the adult butterfly. I still don't really know what they are, but I love the term. And I wondered whether the Mahanta was telling me that imagination was the key to my own regeneration. So I looked in the Eck works and found this quote in the book, How to Find God. Sri Harold says, "We begin using our imaginative faculty to start creating the world as we would have it. Everything that we have today has actually been a result of our attitudes as they have formed over the centuries. So what we try to do is spiritualize our consciousness, and we do it by working with the creative imagination. We know that we can shape our future. We can make it what we want, but first, you have to be able to visualize what you want very clearly." I didn't know how to visualize stem cells. So I visualized the bone marrow that they would be extracting as made up of the Eck, made up of billions of points of light, made up of all the stars in the heavens. And I did that visualization every day for the weeks leading up to the procedure. And after they had extracted the bone marrow and spun out the stem cells, it turned out that I had not the 400,000 cells I needed for one knee, not the 800,000 cells I needed for two knees. I had over 1 billion stem cells. Like all the stars in the heavens. So the procedure went smoothly, the regeneration is successful, but best of all has been the opportunity to truly know that the Mahanta is with me every moment, that soul is a creative being, and that the Eck performs miracles. Thank you very much.